Hello, everyone. Welcome. You should be, seeing my screen right now as we welcome everyone in from the waiting room. We're expecting a few more people, but I will get started because we have a lot of great content to get through today. So I appreciate you all for being punctual, and I'm happy to get things started. So it's critically important for us to take a moment to connect with the land that we're currently on. We're fortunate enough to be gathering from many different territories today, and we want to recognize the original occupants of the places where we reside and pay respect to Indigenous people's belief and connection to the land, especially since those beliefs have been restricted for so long. I want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. And this is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. As I'm speaking to you all today from Toronto, I also want to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. As some of you may know, there are 5 calls to action related to sport in the Truth and Reconciliation Report. These calls to action ask that the stories of Aboriginal athletes are being told, that there's support for long-term Aboriginal athlete development, that the barriers present in the Physical Activity and Sport Act are reduced, and the inclusion of Aboriginal peoples is promoted. That sport policies, programs, and initiatives are inclusive of Aboriginal peoples by providing stable funding and access, athlete development, sport leaders who are culturally relevant and have received anti-racism training. And finally, that Indigenous peoples' territorial protocol are respected and that local Indigenous communities are engaged in international sporting events. Indigenous women and girls are underrepresented in sport in this country, and they face multiple barriers to participation at all levels. It's our intention at Canadian Women in Sport that in addition to these calls to action, we continue to build relationships that will allow us to better address this gap through our work. So I ask you all to take a moment to reflect on these calls to action and see how you can act on them in your daily lives, understanding that they really speak to work taking place at a policy level. But if you reflect a little bit more, there are actions that can be implemented daily. On the side here, you see a quote from Lilla Watson. Lilla Watson is an Aboriginal elder, activist, and educator from Queensland, Australia. And she shares these words in response to individuals coming up to her asking, how can I help? What do Aboriginal people want? And what she says is, if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come because our liberation is bound within mine, then let us work together. What this means really is that no one is in a position to save anyone, and it is for all of our benefit that we strive for an equitable society. And with that, I would like to acknowledge and wish you all a happy Black History Month. Before I dive into the agenda, I want to quickly take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Wallace, and I'm speaking to you on behalf of Canadian Women in Sport. You are participating in a workshop, which is the final in a series of 6, really targeted at sharing knowledge to be able to better include women in sport programming and recreation programs in Canada. And it's a joy of mine to be able to share that this content was originally developed by Shelley Callahan, who is a program manager who has worked with our organization for many, many years, and has found a lot of key information in engaging, especially women 55 plus, in sport and recreation across Canada. And so this information comes to us from different programs and focus groups and surveys and conversations and relationships that have been built over many years by Shelley. So where we'll start is with an introduction on the Canadian Parks and Rec Association, as well as my organization, Canadian Women in Sport, the organization I come from. Then we'll dive into really foundational understandings of gender equity, the challenges to participation that women in every age and stage of life experience, the solutions that have been identified, and then you'll get an opportunity to hear from our speakers who will offer a regional perspective. And finally, we'll wrap things up with a quick survey and some next steps. But that will also include some time for you to be able to ask your thoughtful questions directly to our guest speakers, which will be very exciting. A few housekeeping points. I'm joined today by my colleague Crystal, who is managing the behind the scenes tech. Her name in the participants is Tech-Canadian Women's Sport. You can see her waving now. So if you run into any technical issues, please feel free to send her a message. She'll also be responding to other messages in the chat, ones that I maybe don't get to. And you're all welcome to have your camera on should you choose. If you're comfortable, by all means, please turn it on. But otherwise, I understand, it's probably lunch hour or around lunch hour where you are. So should you choose, you can have your camera on, but if not, that's not a problem. All right, a bit about Canadian Parks and Recreation. Canadian Parks and Recreation is a national organization dedicated to realizing the full potential of parks and recreation as a major contributor to community health and vibrance. The organization is in its 60th year, which is exceptional, and has been the national voice for parks and recreation, advancing the collective interest of our members. It is a network dedicated to the well-being of people, communities, and the naturally built environments. As well, CPRA provides services for their members and partners that cultivate dialogue, learning, and innovation. A bit about Canadian Women in Sport. We haven't been around for 60 years. We've only been around for 40 years. But we aim to build a stronger, more inclusive sport system, which advances gender equity both in sport and society. And the way that we do that is by operating at the systems level. So we partner with great organizations like Canadian Parks and Recreation to be able to disseminate this information and to be able to advance policies and programs and the knowledge of individuals so that women, girls, and people of diverse gender can have the same exceptional experience in sport and really gain all of those benefits that sport, physical activity, and recreation have to offer. All right, so this initiative or this series of workshops is part of a bigger program. In 2018, the Government of Canada announced that it has this goal to achieve gender equity in sport at every level by 2035. So the overall goal of this project is to increase the retention and participation of women and girls in recreational sport in Canada, with a special focus on the groups identified at the bottom of the slide. So that is girls aged 9 to 15 years, new mothers, women aged 55 plus, girls and women with intersecting identities. All right, moving on to our next section, we're going to speak about the foundational knowledge pieces. So there'll be a few definitions that come up in the following slides. I will share a bit about them and the relevance to the topics that we will be discussing. But I would love to see from the chat your understanding of these words. So if you want to throw in like a yes or a little bit or no, not at all, kind of a descriptor like that to define your understanding of these words. So maybe you've heard them before, maybe this is brand new to you. Everybody is on, in their own spot in their equity journey. And oftentimes we hear these words, but don't really have a grasp of what they mean just because they can be used to mean so many different things. But yeah, I would love to see a little bit of activity in the chat as I go along, just to make sure that we're all, following as I can't see you. That's okay. So as a sport and equity organization, we spend a lot of time engaging with organizations and individuals around these two words in particular. Equality and equity, they sound very similar. One is a little bit more prominent than the other, and they often get used interchangeably. But hopefully by looking at this graph, or this image, you get a better understanding of the nuance of the two words. So equality treats a group of people as if they're all starting from the same line, if we were to use a metaphor for a race. So they're all starting at the same point. And since they are, they all have the same resources, they're all beginning in the same position, they should, in theory, advance together. We know in reality that is really often not the case, and which is why it's critically important to take an equity approach. And equity aims to meet people where they are and provide them with the resources that they need so we can all get to the finish line together. This is illustrated in the bicycles. So when everybody is given the exact same bicycle, that's an even distribution of resources, it's equal. But you can see here, not everybody gets the same benefit out of the bike. It's too big for some, it's too small for others, or it just isn't functional for their abilities, right? When we look on the right, we see that when everybody gets exactly what they need, we can all achieve the same thing. So that's the distinct difference between equity and equality. Moving on to intersectionality. Not everyone experiences sport in the same way. Even a group of women who share some characteristics like gender or age or other aspects of their identity will be impacted by how they experience sport and recreation. To achieve true gender equity, we must also consider culture, ability, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, as well as all the other factors that are included in this image. This little, not a pie chart, but it's almost like a disco ball. So when we talk about intersectionality, this is a word that originated from the work of Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. She's a lawyer and activist in the United States, and when she was first examining the experience of Black women in society, the understanding came from, well, not only are they being marginalized for their gender, they are also being marginalized for their race. And then we understand that those are two aspects that cross, forming an intersection. And if you only address one, you're not addressing the entire experience, which is the cornerstone of her work and our understanding of how to meaningfully advance gender equity in society. So we're going to touch on a little bit of your role coming into this workshop, as well as being, hopefully gender equity advocates in your community, in your organization. And then we're going to explain a little bit about how you can do that, which starts by gaining knowledge about the experience of women in sport. So hopefully you will be vocal and you will be empowered to speak up when you witness inequities. Sometimes it's not very obvious, but speaking up can mean asking questions, right? Why is this happening this way? Oftentimes, if the answer is because that's how it's always been done, there's room for improvement. We want you to celebrate women's participation. We want you to train and certify women if you're in a position to do so, actively recruit women if you're in a position to do so, be out there inviting, communicate these opportunities and find ways to communicate, as we know that the standard approach is not always convenient or accessible. Educate yourself and others by attending workshops such as these. And then there are other resources out there like the Gender Equity Lens training, which is an e-module that we offer. But there are many, many tools and resources out there that you can take, or you can even encourage other people in your community to take. A bit about what we'll be covering today. So we have three learning outcomes that we are aiming to share with you through this workshop. The first of which is understanding the challenges that adult women face to becoming and staying active. The second is understanding what motivates adult women to participate. And lastly, we want to give you some strategies on how to assess and improve your programming in order to be able to retain more women in it. Those are our three main goals. Right, as mentioned, when we spoke about gender equity, we spoke about intersectionality. It's really important for us to touch on who are Canadian women, right? Well, who makes up this group of people? Canada is not unique internationally because of the Second World War. We had a huge baby boom. When we talk about boomers, we know that this is a large demographic that is aging, currently sitting in their mid-50s to early 70s, and this group will continue to grow and move up in the demographic pool. We also know that women tend to live longer than men, so we can expect this trend to continue with a large group of women in their 80s who still want to be physically active. More than 1.67 million people in Canada self-identify as an Indigenous person, and it is one of the fastest growing populations in Canada, having grown by 42.5% between 2006 and 2016. Indigenous people are also some of the youngest population in Canada. 44% of that population is under the age of 25 as of 2016, compared to 28. So that grew from 28 to 44% being under 25. The Canadian Constitution recognizes 3 groups of Indigenous people: First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. These are 3 distinct people with unique histories, cultures, languages, and spiritual beliefs. The map here shows how the composition of Indigenous populations varies across the provinces and territories. First Nations constitute 63% of Indigenous people, Inuit 4%, and Métis 32%. This graph provides information on the trends over time of women immigrants as percentages of the total women's population. In 2011, the National Household Survey estimated that over 3.5 million immigrant women and girls in Canada represented 21.2% of the population, of the country's total population of women. This marks the highest proportion of immigrant women among Canada's women's population in 100 years. This is a really fantastic opportunity to grow women's sport and recreation, as we know that sport can be an incredible tool for settlement and community building. In terms of household types, just to give you an idea, one-person households became the most common type of household for the first time in 2016. Among seniors, people aged 65 and older, 1/3 of women were living alone in 2016, compared to 17.5 men. So that's about 16% more, almost double. Knowing that, a lot of senior women are living on their own, and again, this shows up as a great opportunity to be able to engage them in sport, recreation, and physical activity. All right, I'm going to ask you to participate in a quick activity. So you'll see here that there is a trivia question, and there are 4 quadrants on the screen. So you can vote on your answer one of 2 ways. You can pop your answer in the chat, or you can use a stamp and mark your answer in one of the quadrants. So I'm just going to demonstrate by showing you how to use a stamp. At the top of your screen, there should be a button that says View Options. When you click that, the 3rd or 4th dropdown will say Annotate. Once you click that, a new menu bar will appear on your screen, and you can select a stamp, or you can draw, or you can use whatever you think is fun or exciting, and you can stamp directly on the screen. So by doing this, I voted for social dancing. The other option would be to pop your answer directly in the chat. All right, we have a couple people who have voted for walking. I'll give you another 10 seconds to place your vote. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the majority of you were correct. So the walking is the #1 activity in Canada across all age groups and genders, and it has been the top activity for decades. For women 18 years of age and over, walking is almost twice as popular as the next closest activity, which is gardening and yard work. Then we have social dancing, cycling, exercise classes or aerobics, yoga, tai chi, ice skating, golfing, baseball, softball, basketball, ice hockey, football. it's interesting to me that this is where we get into really the team sports, which I grew up doing team sports. I find it kind of surprising that they're all the way over here. All right, moving on to challenges to participation. One of the main challenges to participation is physical literacy. I'm sharing here a graph, or really an infographic, that captures a couple of kind of an overview of the ages and stages. This is not, everybody's life cycle, but this is really highlights a few of the common areas where women go on the off ramp, and if not for dedicated programs or opportunities, it will be very challenging to get back on. So a few of those that we wanted to highlight are pregnancy, work, caring for parents, calling back to the aging of the baby boomer population. This is going to be, again, a big something that will be taking up time from physical activity and other things that women and people do. So something to really pay attention to. Illness and injury and physical restrictions. Understanding these challenges will help in developing solutions that support getting women back on track. And by creating a constant stream of on-ramps, you'll help women to choose to get involved or return to active living through their lives. Once again, I want to share, this is not a linear journey. So remember, one size does not fit all. You don't want to make any guesses or ask women what. Really, you should be asking women what works for them and supporting their ideas to engage them in solutions. The following slides will provide some of the main challenges that all women face to being active, as well as specific challenges for women 55 plus, newcomer women, new mothers, and Indigenous women. We will also talk about some of the ways you can help women overcome these challenges. And as mentioned, this information has been compiled from focus groups, pilot projects, resulted in that's taken place between 2007 to 2020. The first 4 challenges that we're going to address are the physical, emotional, social, and societal. Physical challenges are those that can be that can physically prevent a woman from being active. The first of which seems a little bit obvious, but it's health. This includes physical and mental health, and these issues can often keep a woman from being active, including injuries, pain, illness, depression. This is why it's important to provide adaptations and create a welcoming environment where women can ask questions and let you know about any medications that they're on or limitations they're experiencing. So you can help them make those adjustments to stay active for life. Cost is a barrier at many major ages and stages, and this can be equipment, clothes, the actual cost of programming, transportation. The proximity of an activity can be a big challenge for many women, as they may lack the funds or transportation to participate. Access to child or elder care is also very important if women are participating without caregiving being a concern. Looking outside of traditional facilities to organize walks in nearby park or a local mosque, or providing access to child or elder care are ways to help overcome challenge and offering things at no cost or discount. Skills. So many women have not had the opportunity to learn the skills they need to participate, so they choose not to, right? And when we speak about skills here, it's not necessarily being able to participate at an elite level, but like those fundamental movement skills that allow you to move without risk of injury and feeling comfortable in your body. You want to include skills training as part of your activities and advertise that instructions will be a part of the program, and this can give women the confidence to try. The logistics of the actual programming can be a physical challenge. With so many competing priorities for women, there's no perfect time to run an activity. So be sure to offer a variety of options. This can look like days, evenings, weekends, and ask them what works best for them. As mentioned, transportation can be a major barrier if an activity is far away and this group of women do not drive or have access to public transit. To help make transportation less of an issue, trying maybe partnering participants to ride together, use facilities on major transit routes, or offer educational sessions on how to use public transit. Lastly, weather. Weather can be a major barrier for many women, in particular ice and snow. Providing suggestions on how to dress warmly and avoid falls by wearing ice grippers are just some examples of how you can help women plan for the weather so they can participate all year long. Emotional challenges. So these are the emotional challenges that can prevent women from participating, including guilt, competing priorities, confidence, and transitions. Many women can experience guilt and have been conditioned to do so when they are participating in something that's not focused on someone else. And overcoming this challenge can be very difficult. So if you can provide opportunities where women can participate in something at the same time as their children, grandchildren, family, it's just one way to overcome this guilt. The competing priorities, this has to do with scheduling and all of the different hats that many women wear. And the physical activity components of their lives may just fall off of their to-do list. So one way to help is to encourage women to schedule physical activity into their day as if it's an appointment that they never miss. Recurrences that happen at the same time, same days, tend to work best because then it becomes part of a routine. Confidence. I feel this ties in really well with this idea of the physical skills and the fundamental movements. Sometimes some women may lack confidence to ask questions, especially if everybody else seems to be doing something without any problem. They don't want to stand out, so they don't ask how to make an adjustment because something hurts, and instead they might just leave and feel as though they can't participate. As a leader, it's important that you open the door for questions, either in a group setting or one-to-one, so women can get the information that they need. Even the most confident person could be embarrassed to ask a question, so always provide opportunities and make yourself available. Lastly, we'll talk on this slide about transitions. So as women age, they go through a number of life transitions and often are not sure where they fit in anymore. Participation in active living provides a great opportunity for women to go through different life transitions, as it provides a fun way to plug into something fun and healthy while being with others and share the same interest. Be sure to constantly reach out to past participants to encourage them to return when they've been away for a while. Also, I would encourage you to invite new people all the time, and you never want to underestimate the power of an invitation. That's something that has really rung true over the years. Life often puts women off the path, but with a little bit of encouragement, they can come back and rejoin sport and recreation. Moving on to social challenges. So these are those that impact the social needs of a woman, and without these social aspects in place, they can pose as barriers to participation in physical activity and sport. Excuse me. So the first thing we want to talk about is buddies. Having a buddy is hugely important to long-term commitment to participation. And not having one or a network to do something with has been consistently cited by women of every age as a major barrier to their participation, as they're just not motivated to do things on their own or motivated to overcome the barriers they're experiencing to participation. I think this is something that is going to come up from both of our speakers today about the power of forming that network. Providing opportunities for women to meet outside of the activity, like potlucks or coffee chats, is a really great way to meet that social need. And the create the beginnings of that network. The second is support. So being supported to participate in active living by your family, your partner, your boss, or your children is very important. And if you don't have that support, it can pose as a major challenge. Providing opportunities for families or workplaces to participate together is one way to help increase this essential support. Lastly, we're going to discuss inclusion. So women like to participate in environments that are welcoming and supportive. In many cases, cliques, regardless of age and stage, can be a problem. So it's important to ensure that there are not happening and all participants feel included. One way you can deal with cliques is by, really empowering the people in your program to be part of the welcoming committee. Encouraging them to, when somebody new joins, seeking them out, forming that relationship, and ensuring that the culture of your program is that everybody is welcome. So great for you to be here. I'd love to introduce you to somebody else, and get that ball rolling and that connection forming. Here we have societal challenges. And the first one we're going to discuss is body image. So women, regardless of age, have told us that they are self-conscious of their bodies, with many saying they do not want to go to the gym until they've lost weight, which is difficult to hear. Or they have no interest, for example, in wearing a bathing suit despite loving to swim. Offering women's only in private spaces helps women overcome some body image issues. And for many cultures where exercising in front of men is not acceptable, women's only provides a great opportunity for all women to participate regardless of background. Gender roles and stereotypes are continue to be an issue that we address through our work. And unfortunately, we still live in a society where women's participation in physical activity and sport is not considered acceptable. And this societal reflection can change throughout a woman's lifetime. So, for example, a young girl playing softball might be perceived as fine. As a mother, this may be frowned upon by, external people, again, placing guilt that she's prioritizing her health and wellness. And then as that same woman turns 65, it would be, considered absurd by society that she would participate in a team sport like softball. This is especially true in many cultures where women do not participate in sport and physical activity. And as leaders here, it's our responsibility to help change this mindset and society's attitudes towards women participating in physical activity and sport. We need to showcase women of all ages and cultures by sharing stories and challenging these stereotypes directly. Lastly, on this slide, we'll touch on culture. Women from different varying cultures have potentially added challenges, including language barriers or a lack of awareness if they are new to the community and they don't know how programs run or where they can access them. The best way to understand what women from possibly a different background need is to ask respectfully and directly. And by working together to understand, you can create on both sides with a solution that will allow everyone to participate. I will add too that there are other resources that you can seek out as well, partnering with settlement agencies or other organizations who can provide insights on what changes will make your programs more accessible. Moving on, we're going to be discussing some of the unique challenges of the groups that were identified at the beginning of the workshop. The first of which is women 55 plus. So ageism is the process of systemic stereotyping and discrimination against older persons. As people age, they often get pigeonholed into what society assumes that they should or should not do. And the opportunities become diminishing. Women in this age group once said to Shelley that I'm 60, why are my only options mall walking and aquafit? I would love to play basketball. It's important that we don't get caught up in these stereotypes and instead ask women 55 plus what they want to do and be prepared to adapt activities so they can participate. Next, we'll look at health. When working with women 55 plus, there's a good chance that they'll have arthritis, high blood pressure, or potentially a host of other chronic conditions. But it doesn't mean that they can't participate. And we need to develop adaptations to help them stay active now and as they continue to age. So as a leader, it's important that you have a good understanding of health conditions. You can make appropriate activity suggestions and adaptations. Wording. This one comes up very frequently because a 55 plus bracket is a really large bracket. And so programming should be tailored to the ages and stages within that. But how does that get communicated through promotion is very interesting, because anything that uses the word senior or old is a deterrent. And women in focus groups across Canada have told us that they have very little interest in participating in programs that have that language. What do? Reach out to the community as best you can and find out what wording works well for them. And also being able to, define the age group and in the description, right? So not relying on the title, but getting a little bit more descriptive so that it's something that a person can get excited about. And as they read more, they understand that it is for them. Now we'll be speaking about the challenges facing new mothers. So the first of which is childcare. Although families are sharing childcare duties more often, the responsibility for childcare still rests primarily on the mother. So having access to affordable childcare is very important if they are to participate. Providing options for mothers to participate with their children is one way to help with this barrier. But mothers have also told us that they would like a break. So having access to childcare or perhaps programs where their children could participate at the same time so they can get that fun, active break with other women would be another option to consider. Actually, a little bit of an anecdote from yesterday evening that's highly relevant. One of my coworkers returned to where we coach, and she is the mother of a 3-month-old, and she was, hanging out in the space waiting for the programming to be done for the night so that another colleague of ours could join her at the hockey rink to be able to watch her daughter while she played hockey. And what I think is really, exciting about that is that although, her daughter is only 3 months old, being able to, grow up by the rink and see her mom being physically active is going to increase the likelihood that she is physically active into adulthood. So it's really exciting to see that positive cycle beginning with one person, as well as the community of people who are there to support and are engaged and committed. So, I'm seeing now. Debbie, thank you for sharing about your accomplishment in Hapkido, I believe. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. That's amazing. So the second point I'll share here is partner support. This was referenced earlier, but it is particularly important for new mothers. And it's essential for them to take time away from their responsibilities to be physically active. New mothers in particular talk about the guilt they feel for leaving their children. So having the support of a partner, family member, or friends to step in and take over is necessary for mothers to participate and really reap the benefits of having that break. It's one thing to take a break and be there going through the motions, but your mind is elsewhere. And then it's something else to be able to walk away, be fully invested in the activity, and then actually get those benefits of a break once you return. Lastly, we'll speak to the unique challenges for Indigenous and newcomer women. The first of which here we have is culture and language. Active living programming offered in Canada tends to be very Western focused with English and French spoken, which can be an immediate intimidating or unwelcoming for Indigenous or newcomer women. Offering a variety of activities and providing information in different languages is important to engage this large and growing group of women. So you want to invite women to share activities from their culture where they can teach others how to play is one option. Be flexible on clothing choices or to participants as well. And again, I would encourage you to look outside your current knowledge and understanding, right? Are there resources out there? Are there people you can communicate? Can you form partnerships with different groups to be able to better understand and make tweaks to your programming? For many cultures, participating with or in view of men is also, not acceptable. So offering women only in private spaces is important. It's also important that you work together to incorporate as much of that culture potentially as you can. If you're about to go and spend, $100 at Tim Hortons on Timbits and coffee, maybe that money can be put towards working with the individuals in your programming so that they can bring food and it can be a potluck, right? And you can provide those funds or invest those funds directly into your participants. The second point we have here is childcare. Childcare can be an extra challenge for Indigenous and newcomer women, as mentioned from the statistics previously. These are growing communities. Offering activities that are fun for the entire family is one option to help and to provide childcare. And in some cases, women can take turns minding the children. So having a room available for this to happen could be all you need. Lastly, we'll discuss trauma. So women can often be the leaders in their family and as such take on much of the stress the family goes through as they deal with grief, loss, and change. Many Indigenous women and newcomer women need support to help them through issues they may be dealing with. Per the 97th call to action in the Truth and Reconciliation report, it asks that culturally relevant program leaders are available or at minimum support leaders who have received some form of anti-racism training to avoid inflicting more harm. It's important that as leaders, you're aware of and have access to services to support women with issues they may be facing. Additionally, you may need to be flexible and patient, as some days they may not be able to attend based on other priorities they're dealing with. All right, moving on to the solutions. So a lot of them, have come up as we discussed, but we also want to make sure that you have a list and a little bit of a framework that you can work from. So as program leaders, we need to figure out how to create confidence, competence, and motivation for women. This together forms the idea around physical literacy. So we want to ensure that our programs are contributing to women's physical literacy, and what this looks like depends on the age and stage in life. Beginning with creating competence. So we want to offer skills training opportunities, try-it sessions, and regular orientations. Skill development and try-it sessions tend to be focused on children, but for women who are just starting out in these sessions, they can be very important. When a person joins a gym, they usually get one orientation session on how to use the equipment, where things are, etc., but then never again. So encouraging questions will allow women to feel competent and confident to try new things through regular orientation opportunities. This was touched on a little bit earlier, but fundamental movement skills and the integration of fundamental movement skill development in your program could change everything. Many women never had the chance to participate in physical activity or sport because of those societal stereotypes we're aware of. Based on this, many have never learned the fundamental movement skills such as running, throwing, kicking, jumping, skipping, catching, striking. There's 8 or 11 that are identified by Sport Canada. It's never too late to learn, and we never want to assume women have been taught properly. Teaching these skills will greatly improve their competence and make them more willing to try activities. We encourage you to offer a variety of activities. Again, exposure. This works to expose women to more activities that are out there, and also to combat those stereotypes about what activities are appropriate for age and stage. Ensuring that your programs have a balance between structure and unstructure is critically important as well. Again, not focusing so much on rules and tactics before creating a psychologically safe and supportive environment will help you to grow your program, and it will also help you to retain participation. Lastly, we want you to focus on recruiting more women to become instructors and coaches. I think this is also critically important to ensure that everybody feels welcome. So really recruiting from within your group and training up women who would have been less likely to be able to participate and attain certain accreditations as coaches could really change the entire outlook of your program. Creating confidence. So we want to develop women-only programs, right? We know that women feel more comfortable often exercising with other women, and this is particularly true in sports as women gain confidence in playing in female-only environments. Competing against men can be motivating for some women who are already confident and competent, but for most women, that can be an intimidating environment. So for many cultures, exercising in front of men is not appropriate. Making women-only environments is essential for their participation. Excuse me. So for training program leaders, it's really important for you to understand the health and wellness of your participants. Many women are dealing with different medical conditions, injuries, or just don't feel comfortable trying anything new because they think they can get hurt. It's important that programmers, instructors, and coaches understand these limitations, talk about the conditions openly, and offer adaptations. That really requires some relationship building as well. So it's quite a bit easier said than done. It requires a ton of commitment on the part of the program leader. We want you to create environments that are welcoming. We referred in a couple of ways how you may do that, but it really comes down to the culture of the program. You want to ensure that your staff are trained to say hello, create icebreaker games for your programs, and allow participants to get to know each other. Working in partnerships is critically important as many women are not familiar with fitness facilities and as a result do not feel comfortable engaging or attending. In order to get more women out there, you want to plan and partner with organizations they are more comfortable with to coordinate active living programs. Groups like settlement agencies, churches, mosques, grocery stores, friendship centers often have gyms or other spaces for activities and are willing to host events. Since women already feel comfortable there, it could increase their confidence to participate. Setting expectations will also positively impact your participation in programs. I think we've all been in a position where we went to attend an activity that was brand new to us and we didn't really understand, okay, what equipment do I need? What will be provided? What should I wear? And that really can add to the stress of participating in something new. So the more information that you can provide, the better. Lastly, you want to be learning from your attendees and participants, right? Ask them what they're hoping to get out of the program. and ensure that there's alignment there. I would encourage them to run new activities by them, and but that would also include, the planning process, right? Scheduling can be very challenging, and understanding what's going to be the most effective offering can lead to some really positive benefits. Excuse me. All right, before we move on to our guest speakers, I want to discuss how we can foster motivation. So you're going to see some out here that maybe you've experienced before as a program participant, maybe you have not. Tried and true is food. Food, and free food especially, is a huge motivator for anyone to participate in almost anything. And there's ways that you can really increase the benefits of your offering through food, right? So planning healthy snacks or nutrition series, or integrating social aspects with food by having potlucks or coffee. It can be a multifaceted benefit. Developing routine is highly motivating, so incorporating activities as a part of a regular routine becomes habit for many women and a big part of their lives. Keeping their routine is very important. Creating goals and rewards, so helping women by supporting them through their goals, their wellness goals, can be a motivator for them to return weekly or however often your program runs. We know the impact of the network, so having a buddy and someone to do things with is highly motivational. So we want you to make sure that your programs have that social connection aspect to bring people back. Family activities creates opportunities for the entire family to participate. Moms and daughters together is also something you should consider, as children love to see their moms participating in physical activity. Something that's motivating and isn't discussed that often are cost-saving opportunities that can really incentivize someone and also incentivize someone to bring another person inside their network, right? 2 for 1, or a event where friends and family are welcome. Invitation, a personal invite to participate can really be the start of a special connection. Women are more interested in being invited than getting a generic flyer. Creating a fun environment is one of the most frequently mentioned reasons women say they participate in physical activity or sport. Laughing, having fun are huge motivators. Improved health is a motivator. Women that felt better had more energy and saw improvements, better circulation, less arthritis pain. Those folks were more motivated to continue participating. Encouraging women to focus on health improvements and not losing weight, that also contributes to a body neutral environment, right? So we're not, health and wellness is a positive outcome of physical activity, but it's not, it's not the goal, it's not at the center of women's lives. But we can acknowledge that moving daily can have physical benefits. Competitions, events, or challenges. So really, again, as someone who was in competitive sport and continues to be physically active, a sense of competition can be highly motivating, and it can increase participation. So women tend to really like anything that isn't even necessarily tied to the competition of a positive outcome in a game, like a basketball game or something. But if you are thinking about, integrating a fundraising activity into a physical activity, that can be highly motivating as well, like a walkathon or something. And that is it for this portion, this core portion of the workshop. So we discussed the challenges and we discussed some of those key solutions that have arisen in the last 13 years. And I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest speakers who will be providing a regional perspective. So you'll be hearing from Jenny first, who is the director of Mommy Connection Saskatoon. And then you'll be hearing from Nicole, who will be sharing her experience with the Lethbridge Steel women's tackle football team. So two really unique programs that we're going to talk to you about how they are there to create meaningful opportunities for women to engage in sport and recreation. So without further ado, Jenny, we'd love to hear from you.
Great. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Jenny. I'm the director of Mommy Connections Saskatoon. So with Mommy Connections, our goal is to introduce moms to programs and services available within our community. They provide a unique learning opportunity to meet other moms, as well as bond with our little ones, like babies, toddlers. We have different programs for different ages. So we provide educational and social connections for mostly moms. We do have a few dads that join maybe like our toddler programs, but for our younger groups, like the mom and baby groups, it's all women together. All right, so traveling tots. So that's our one for families with children between 18 months and 4 years old. So it's a way for, it's usually mom, sometimes dad, but majority mom, to come along, and they're with their child, and each week we do a different activity. So it's a good way to explore different opportunities within the city, and then also make new friends. So each week we're at a new location, and it's the same group of moms every week as well. So the program runs for 6 weeks, and so everyone's together for those 6 weeks. So yeah, as I mentioned, 6 weeks long. Every week there's a different activity. There's things like soccer, nature walks, going to the zoo, doing dance. And so it's an interactive activity for mom to do with their child. And so we find that when the moms are doing the activity, the kids participate more. If it was just moms sitting on the side doing dance class, then the toddlers all left to kind of do their own thing. They don't really participate, but they really love doing things with mom. And so if mom's dancing, the toddler's dancing right along with her. So that engagement between mom and child is super important. And then we have our Mama Move. So this is more for moms with babies between 2 months and 8 months. So it's 6 weeks of different fitness classes. So we do some ones that are more like kind of like a Zumba. We have strength training, swimming, and it's all designed for new moms. So yeah, it's a fun, low pressure way for new moms. We always make sure they've been cleared for exercise first, and it's a way to ease back into the fitness routine. All the instructors that we have are trained to work with women, postpartum women, and they have different exercises and different ways to modify things depending on abdominals, pelvic floor, things like that, because everyone is at different stages. So there's different variations that can be done and changed to fit everyone's individual needs. Some like the Zumba ones where you're wearing baby are more intense, some are more relaxed. We have a physiotherapist who does more of like a low pressure one. So it all changes, and yeah, we lots of modifications to accommodate all levels. So yeah, this is just some things that we've heard from moms. So yeah, we've heard that they really enjoy being able to bring their baby along with them. They don't need to worry about finding someone to care for them or that obstacle. And then when baby comes along, sometimes they will nap through the class, sometimes they're awake. Like this mom here in the picture, working out with baby, using baby as a weight, integrating them into the workout. So it just kind of, again, it is based on each mom and baby. So we kind of just make sure that it works for them. And so what works for one mom in the group isn't going to work for the next one in the group. And we always make sure that everyone is aware of that. And we just kind of do whatever they're comfortable with. So lots of different options for the moms. And so, yeah, as I mentioned before, it's the same group of moms together for the 6 weeks. And so it's a really great way you get to know everyone else in the group. So it's not just the fitness, focusing on fitness, it's focusing on the connections as well. So during all the activities, there's lots of visiting. the moms, we always have time to visit at the start. So when we start the class, we always have about 15 minutes just for visiting. Then we get into the activity and they usually visit a lot throughout that as well. Then afterwards, there's lots of visiting too. And there's lots of moms who will, after class, they'll go out for coffee together, or we set up a WhatsApp and like a private Facebook group just for the moms registered in the class. And that's a way for them to also connect outside of class. So lots of groups still get together. So say the class is on a Tuesday, they'll get together on a Thursday and get together just to socialize as well. So that social connection is a really big part of the groups as well. And yeah, all the moms are, like for the Mama Moves, all the moms are new moms, all postpartum. So they're all similar in that way, that there's maybe some with a 2-month-old, some with an 8-month-old, but they're all kind of within the same stage. So it's connecting with others who are kind of going through the same thing as them right now as well. And same with the tots, like all the moms, the kids are all similar age. So it's a really good way to get out, meet other moms, meet other toddlers. And there's lots of connections that form within those groups as well. Perfect. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Jenny. If anybody has any questions for Jenny, we're going to be holding a Q&A at the end. So you can populate those in the chat, or you can just save them in your head. But yeah, I think it really came through, you know, just the significance of community building, especially at this like really massive transition period. And again, understanding like the physical changes that are taking place in a woman's body postpartum, to be able to start to move and maybe feel good again. I would like to welcome Nicole to start your presentation.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, my name's Nicole Van Rootsler, and I'm part of a women's tackle football team. And I was just going to talk a little bit about that team, about the different opportunities it gave me, and now we get to give to other new players as they find out and join our team. And essentially, the really cool thing about this team is it's a competitive women's tackle football team. So it gives women the opportunity to compete at any stage of life, any stage of their fitness journey, any stage of their own personal journey. If you want to go next slide, I guess. And I put animations in here, so I don't know. I can give you like a thumbs up maybe to click again, so I don't have to keep saying click. Okay, sounds good. So just to start off with a bit about me, I grew up in Southern Alberta. The team is located out of Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, so Southern Alberta. I've been a student for quite a long time. I have a background attending the University of Lethbridge, where I did my BA in kinesiology and my Master's of Science in kines as well. And my still working right now on my PhD in neuroscience. So just from my background in schooling, you can kind of get a sense that I've always really prioritized and enjoyed participating in sport, learning about sport and physical activity. And that's reflected in my recreational choices too. In high school, I was a huge sport fanatic and played all the sports that my small town high school had to offer. Moving on into my university years, I also participated in some recreational leagues. From that picture, something interesting is that Lethbridge is a smaller city. I think we have about 100,000 people who live here. So lots of the rec leagues that I found were co-ed and had, of course, men who were really good at their sports. And so the recreational part was less recreational, very intimidating for someone who maybe didn't grow up playing soccer to try and join a soccer team and play with them. I think this was something that contributed, if we want to go to the next slide, to then during my master's later on in my adult life, I stepped back, didn't have time, basically felt like I didn't have time to participate in sports. So it wasn't until 2018 when a friend convinced me to start training for a half marathon with them. This led to now this year where I was able to do ultra. And then I think that is directly related to joining this football team. That same friend, she had a friend who said, hey, I know you guys have never done a tackle sport or contact sport before, but you're both competitive, you both enjoy sports. You should come out and try this team and give it a shot. And now 4 years later, here I am playing with the Lethbridge Steel. So Lethbridge Steel women's tackle football team is a team that the only requirements to play are that you're over the age of 16 and you identify as female. So just kind of, if you glance through that picture of the team from a couple of years ago, there is a lot of diversity. We had, at least in this group, 2 players who were over the ages of 50 who were playing. I think about a third of the women on the team had kids. Of course, some of them had older kids, some of them had toddlers and were still making it out to play. I recently got to talk to a past player who had been playing with the team, had a child during the spring season. Our competitive season occurs in May, June. So I think she had a child in February and was playing in football games in May. So there's, lots of opportunity within this team for different examples of women on those different journeys and paths in their life, getting to experience and play football. I'll kind of rope around back to that if we want to go to the next slide and just talk about that we are a competitive team. So we're part of the Western Women Canadian Football League. I don't know where everyone tuning in today lives, but the teams on the left side, the Rage, Storm, Steel, are all located across Alberta. And then the teams on the left or on the right are located across Saskatchewan and Manitoba. There are definitely similar leagues in Ontario, Quebec. I don't know about the rest of Canada, and I don't know what those teams individually are like, or if their experiences, their players have similar experiences to what Lethbridge Steel has given me. But so we're an official league. We have our round robin part of the season occurs from May, June. Then we progress into playoffs, ending in a championship game, usually around Canada Day. So a fully competitive league that meets regularly to practice, train. We have playbooks. But within all of that, within sounding like we're high-level athletes and compete at a high level, which is what we always attain to do, we welcome players every year who have never stepped on a football field before, who don't know how to throw, who don't know how to catch, who can't run 20 yards and maybe are just postpartum or just spent 30 years at a desk job and haven't ran since they were in high school. So lots of diverse opportunities. If we want to go to the next slide, which is interesting because I think it kind of shows a variety of different opportunities with the Lethbridge Steel. If we go next, previous to joining the Steel, or if you want to click, previous to joining the Lethbridge Steel, I was stuck mainly in just the active for life with my recreational leagues, but joining the Lethbridge Steel, if you want to bring up the circle, looking at the different opportunities and different levels in long-term athlete development, Lethbridge Steel encompasses all of those. When you look at developing physical literacy, that is part of the goal of the team, is the coaches and returning players know that if there's a new player, they haven't played football before, so they don't know the footwork, they might not know how to catch a football or how to block a player or even what that means. So coaches start at the fundamentals and build players up to give them the opportunity to be competitive for life or train to train in those higher levels. Yeah, exactly. And it's a team about growth. So if you join the team and you don't know how to throw, that's okay. And you're going to get the opportunity to learn and build those skills. If you want to go to the next slide, I wasn't sure exactly what Vanessa was going to talk about. So some of this might be a little bit repetitive, but going through the Active for Life website, the non-for-profit by the Canadian or associated with the Canadian government, they had an article talking about why more women aren't physically active. And they had 6 points in that article, which I thought perfectly fit in with the Lethbridge Steel and how it kind of presents opportunities to counteract each and every one of those points of what prevents one from joining sports and being active. And so some of this is going to be very repetitive of what Vanessa covered already. But So one of the first things is physical barriers, where you have women who don't have good physical literacy skills like catching, trapping, kicking, running, and also might not have great fitness or be self-conscious about their fitness levels. And something that is just lovely specific to football is that that doesn't matter near as much as in other sports where you think of volleyball or basketball, where there's constant sprinting, or you have to be able to jump high and hit a ball really hard. And if you can't do that, then you can't contribute to the team. In football, what you see at the bottom of the screen is outlining a lineup for the offensive side of a field. So in the middle, we have a QB marker there, which stands for quarterback, which most of you are familiar with. Obviously, to play quarterback, you have to be able to throw the ball. But if you can't throw the ball, that's okay. Maybe you can catch a ball on the beside the quarterback going out to the edge of the field. We have on the left side, there's the RB, the running back, the SB slot back, WR wide receiver. Those are all positions where you have to be able to catch the ball or grab the ball from the quarterback and run. So if you can do that, you're great. Those are great positions for you. Or if that's something you want to learn, then that's something you can do. The line of 5 players in front of the QB in the middle of the screen, where you have the CLGLT, those are the offensive linemen. They don't have to touch the ball at all. Their job is to protect the quarterback. So they don't really have to run. They don't have to have that eye-hand coordination to catch or throw. Their job is to hold their spot and be strong and not let the opposing team players rush and tackle the quarterback. Yeah, so just the innate nature of football presents all these cool opportunities. Also have kickers, so kind of overcomes those physical barriers. And one more point onto that, if you want to click, I think 2 times, I have just pictures of professional football players, and these guys both played with the Calgary Stampeders. We have the quarterback on the right side and an O-line on the left. And they're the same height, except one weighs just about 200 pounds and the other one weighs 350 pounds. And both provide vital roles within the game of football and have very different jobs and very different bodies, which is, of course, something that comes into play as a woman trying to make yourself feel comfortable and competent and able to step onto a sport field. If you want to go, I think there's one more picture here that just shows, yeah, again, different body types, different heights, different ways, opportunities you can contribute as a player in football. And then on to the next slide, talking about psychological barriers, which again, Vanessa touched on. If you want to click one more time, when you Google female football players, this is mostly what comes up. So I'm going to say that I can say that on our team, almost no one has a body exactly like that. And that is totally okay. Football really provides that opportunity for women who might have confidence issues, self-esteem issues, to see that their bodies in whatever form, shape they come in are valid and really helpful and important to the team. And you don't have to look like that to play on a competitive sports team and on a competitive all-female sports team. If you want to go to the next slide. And yeah, just back to my previous images where there's all sorts of body types. And those are all important in the game of football. And another point that, again, Vanessa kind of covered is there are the time-based barriers depending on the age of the woman. There's different things that come up in your life, whether that's taking care of children or career or all of the above. It can be really hard to make time for physical activity. And just interesting that in this little infographic and all the infographics I saw, none of the women juggling everything were ever juggling physical activity or sports. It wasn't even something the cartoonists considered putting on their mind. Instead, she's busy thinking about shoes or outfits and the car and work and stocks, as well as watching the kid. So if you happen to be a woman who has a sort of support, then maybe you get to come and engage with physical activity. One great thing about this team is that I know we've had times in the past where We're really supportive of moms who have to bring their kids to practice. So the kids will play by the side. Sometimes, depending on the drills we're doing, the kids get to get involved and hold a bag or kind of run through some of the drills a little bit too. So they not only do they get to, the moms get to be there and get to know that their kid is safe and being looked after. They also, the kids, especially if they're female, get a taste of experiencing football and that really positive team environment. If you want to go to the next slide. So the last one, interpersonal barriers, perceptions of females in sports, partner support or family support. Again, this I think plays a lot into the psychological, physical, time-based barriers where depending on your personal life, if you have a supportive spouse who can say, we'll give you 5 hours a week to go out to all the football practices and play the games. If you don't have that, then it's really hard to make the team work. And it does require, I think, overcoming kind of this idea that, especially with a tackle sport, you might have different perceptions of how people are going to perceive you if you engage in that tackle sport. Whether there's, you could be affiliated with, there's a lingerie league in the States that I think is there is a official all-female tackle league in the States too, but there is also a lingerie league, which a lot of people have heard of that, and not a lot of people have heard of the WWCFL here in Canada, maybe unsurprisingly. So I think, the Lethbridge Steel just provides this awesome opportunity for women to come out and see that there really is a diverse group of women who participate on the team. And it kind of crushes those maybe negative perceptions that people might have of, oh, if you play a tackle sport, then you're going to be too tough or too muscular, or maybe you're not fit enough to play in a competitive league, which again, because of football, there is a role for everyone to play, and a way that everyone of all body types, all backgrounds can contribute. And then just the last 2 points of barriers are access and opportunity and programming, which is really where Lethbridge Steel comes in. The description that we give of ourselves on our website and on our Facebook page are that we are a group of women of all shapes, sizes, abilities, and ages who are passionate about playing football. And our team motto has always been, you're tougher than you think. So that just really sums up that these are all the reasons why a female woman might have for saying, no, I don't think I can play a sport. I don't think I can participate. But in my own personal experience and in the experience from other women on the team talking to them, I think we do a good job of trying to combat each and every one of those points. I think that was kind of all the big points, and just included a picture of the team. We've started practicing indoors this last month. It's actually, we're calling it a skills camp to try and recruit new players, build up those basic physical literacy skills, and again just really shows a diversity and the diversity in the team. And I think the big smiles on everyone's faces speak to the fact that we really strive to create a welcoming, inclusive environment. And of course, as a competitive team, we want to do well, we want to win, we want to equip players with the skills, but we also want to make sure that everyone feels welcome, included, and is there to have fun as well as to play some football.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole and Jenny. I'm going to stop my share for a second, just open the floor to anybody who has questions for either of our guest speakers about the programming that they're a part of and that they deliver, and anything that you want to know. So I open the floor. If you have a question, you can pop it in the chat. We're also a bit smaller of a group, so I would also welcome you to just unmute and ask. But now will be the time for you to share any questions that you have. I would ask, I'll get the ball rolling. I'll just ask Nicole, like, what is the weekly commitment to participating on your team, and how do you find most of the athletes manage that? Like how many hours in a week, and what do some folks only attend part of it, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. During the season when we're playing games, so May to June, possibly into July, it is about an hour to 2 hours, 3 nights a week. And then the games kind of take over the weekend, because if we're traveling to Calgary or Edmonton, then that's the morning driving up somewhere, the afternoon playing the game, the evening driving back. So of course that gets really tough. Before the start of the season, we kind of slowly ramp up from 1 practice for an hour and a half a week to 2 practices for that hour and a half. And our coaches are just really great at being accommodating and acknowledging that you're trying to run a team with adult women who have careers and families and other commitments. So just right from the start, they are always kind of saying, we want you to be committed to us. We want you to be here as often as possible. But if you can't, we usually need players. So we appreciate the time that you can give us. And of course, because we're a competitive team, like sometimes when we do have players who can only make it to a practice here and there, when it comes to game time, they're probably not going to get as much playing time. So yeah, that kind of happens, but they still get to be there for kind of the fun team atmosphere, for the go for drinks on the weekend or spend time together outside of the sport and build those relationships, which I think is, yeah, really cool.
No, I think that's great, and I really do appreciate that attitude of like, we'll work with what we can, of course, and not placing blame or even further guilt on someone who has to prioritize something else. Jenny, I'd like to know a little bit about more of those sort of unexpected benefits that participants in your program sort of experience, and if you're aware of like sort of if there's an expectation they have coming in of what they're going to experience, and then they show up to the program, and sort of what is that transition like? We're like, oh, this is more than getting to be physically active for a certain amount of time, because like even in the name, it's Mommy Connections, right?
Yeah, so I think it is the connections that people don't always, they might be joining just for the fitness part of it, and that's the connections that they really leave with that is the most important with them. And so yeah, like I feel that there are some who join for the connections, and even then they're kind of like amazed by how much they do connect over the 6 weeks with people and how they make lifelong friends. And there's people who join when their baby is 8 weeks old, and they spend their mat leaves together, they celebrate like first birthdays together, like they make lifelong friends. So that's definitely the biggest thing I would say.
That's exceptional. So I'm still going to keep an eye on the chat in case there are any questions that come through, but I have a few more slides just before we wrap. I'll share screen once again. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. But just want to cover some of the next steps, right? Through what we've discussed, we can acknowledge the power of developing and implementing women-only programs and making sure that we're doing that, the best way possible. So coming in from the development stage, as you are able to, by engaging women and understanding, okay, am I just showing up with a solution, or have I actually talked to the community that I'm trying to engage to understand what their needs really are? Making those personal connections through invitation, creating an environment that's fun and welcoming and builds connection socially. Incorporating that skill development and understanding that not everybody had the same experience, maybe learning fundamental movement skills, or maybe they're participating in a program they have no familiarity with. So making sure that they understand how to move appropriately. Developing partnerships to deliver programs so that you have a fuller understanding of the community that you're looking to engage, or maybe to gain benefits in terms of recruitment and tapping into a network. And then asking women what they want and making them a part of your planning. So that kind of really comes back to the top of engaging women in your development phase as possible. You're going to get some links to some of these resources, as well as a recording to this session coming up in a follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that. But we have some handbooks, some workbooks, and recordings to other sessions. We did touch on questions. And before actually I get you to complete this, I'm going to launch a quick poll just to gain some of your feedback from this session. So if you don't mind taking a moment to answer these 4 poll questions, just so we have an understanding of what you were able to get out of this experience, that would be fantastic. Crystal has also included a link to the longer survey, but we ask that you do just take a moment to complete the polls, and then when you have the opportunity, if you can do the full survey just to capture any of your anecdotal feedback, that'd be fantastic. So I'm going to leave the poll up for another 20-30 seconds. There are only 4 questions, so once you've made your way through that, you are done. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you so much for, thank you so much for participating in this poll. As mentioned, this is a QR code that goes along with the link that Crystal has shared for an extended survey. And if you have the time to complete that, we would really appreciate it. We're always trying to improve upon these experiences. And then I just want to take a moment to, yes, the recording will be sent out as well. Thanks, Crystal. I just want to take a moment to thank a couple of people. I want to thank CPRA. I want to thank the Government of Canada for supporting with the funding to deliver this workshop. And I want to thank our guest speakers, Nicole and Jenny. It was really great having both of you on. I learned quite a bit about both of your programs and really how the approach that's being taken in them is contributing to their success in engaging women in physical activity. And I encourage all of the participants to take what you learned today and implement it as best as possible. I can be found at Canadian Women in Sport or womeninsport.ca if you have any questions, and you can expect an email from me with the follow-up, including a recording to this session. Thank you, Crystal, for your back-end support. And with that, we're going to sign off. So everyone, have a great rest of your day. I hope to see you all again soon.